Hello, everybody. I'm Joyce Burgess with the National Black Home Educators. And as always, the National Black Home Educators want to bring you the absolute best information, resources, and learning materials as it relates to homeschooling your children. So, far as history is concerned, all of the subjects, we just want to make sure that you are equipped and empowered as a parent to give your children the absolute best curriculum out there as it relates to the Black experience. The National Black Home Educators is bringing excellence back to homeschooling. Excellence as it relates to curriculum for African Americans, excellence as it relates to family, parent, and child relationships, excellence as it relates to our legacy as a whole, how we are building as a people so that our children will be inspired by the life that we have given them and they can become more and more productive in our society. And we are blessed. And I say blessed because it is a blessing to have people come to you and say, Joyce, I just want to help the organization. I just want to, give my resources or share my resources with families so that they can be blessed by what I've been blessed with. So it's a blessing. And I know I've oversaid that. Oh my gosh, but it truly is. But we are here today with Nichelle. I'm going to say that again. We are here today with Nichelle Nelson. And Nichelle Nelson is going to share with us who she is, what she's done for the homeschooling all over all these years. She's going to share her bio with us. And I just want to welcome Nichelle Nelson to the Path, Parents as Teachers at Home, to our Path show today. Welcome, Nichelle, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to finally get to meet the Joyce Burgess. I have known of you throughout my career as a homeschool mom, but just never actually even was able to get connected. I believe one time, I think you came to Austin and several of my homeschool friends were like, Nichelle, you have to come. And at that time, I think we may have already had one of our daughters in college. So I was working from home as a medical transcriptionist while homeschooling. And I don't think I could get away that day, but I heard so much about it. And it is just really a pleasure to meet you today.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well. So working moms, when they're working at home, they can homeschool, right?
Yes.
That's a whole another story.
Yes. Learned everything from scratch. I started homeschooling, I believe, in 1993. And so there's so much that I had to learn on the fly because I didn't have role models. I didn't have people that I could look to. And people sometimes didn't even have people who would encourage you to say, well, you'll find a way. You'll be able to do it. Well, one thing that one of my very close friends and we talk about is that the resourcefulness of Black homeschool families.
Definitely.
When you have that passion and that desire to see your children succeed, you will find a way. And if it means working while homeschooling, there's a way to do it. So I have just been blessed to be able to be creative in making sure that our children had what they needed when they needed it.
That's amazing. Well, tell us a little bit. I know you've shared a little bit about yourself, but tell us more about who you are, what you've done, and our video is going to be very short, and I have several questions that I want to get out in this video. So just give us a very brief bio about who you are and your work.
Okay, so I am married to an Air Force retiree. We spent the first 12 years of our married life living overseas in 3 different countries. We had children in each of those countries. We affectionately call them our little souvenirs. And so when our firstborn was born in the Azores, Portugal, in praying about this, the birth of this child, and what God's plan for her life was, we felt very strongly that she was never to go into the public school system. My husband and I are both products of the public school system. I was raised in Colorado, he was raised in New Jersey, but we just really had just a strong unction that she was not supposed to do that. At the time, we had never really heard of homeschooling, or if we had, we just thought it was something that, you know, strange people did. But we were already starting to set trends. There had been no stay-at-home moms in either of our families either, and so that was
you're the first. You're
I was
considered
the first.
first. Yeah.
Yes.
Stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom.
Yes. Yes. So that was kind of a mental hurdle to get over. So we moved from the Azores to Germany, and we met our first homeschool family, and they were an African-American family. And my husband had introduced himself to the mom, and she told him that she taught her own children. And my husband comes running to me and he says, "You got to meet this family. This mom teaches her own children at home." And my first response was, "And your point is?" I had no confidence in my ability to teach my own children. But as I got to know the family and I got to know other homeschool families, I was all in. I was turned on. I didn't make the commitment to homeschool lifelong immediately. I did it I said, well, maybe I can just teach them to read. And then after they learn to read, I said, well, maybe then I'll teach them kindergarten, and well, maybe I'll go ahead and do first grade. And so after a while, homeschooling became our life, not just our educational choice. So we left Germany and we moved to Okinawa, and Okinawa had a thriving homeschool community there. And so where I had just dipped my feet in the water in Germany, we dove in full once we got to Okinawa. We had mentors, and we had other people that were ahead of us in the journey. I believe that military families, particularly Black military families, embraced homeschooling, I think, before it really became more mainstream in the U.S. So by that time, I had lots of role models.
I understand.
We came back to the States. By this time, we had 4 children and had settled in Central Texas, also in Austin area, very thriving homeschool community. After we had been here for about 4 years, our firstborn daughter, Adrian, one day said, "Mom, I have a headache." And it was about 3 days before her 13th birthday. And over the course of the next few weeks, taking her to doctors and trying to figure out what was wrong, by the 3rd week, after the first onset of symptoms, we were able to get her admitted to the Children's Hospital and get an MRI. And we were told that she had a brain tumor. And so we prepared ourselves to fight. We were like, okay, well, if this is what's going to happen, we're putting our gloves on. But before we even had the opportunity to find out anything about treatment options or anything, 72 hours after her diagnosis, she passed away. And so, thank you. We had, I guess you could say maybe an identity crisis at this point, because we knew that the calling to homeschool had specifically been for Adrian. It was before we had any other children. And so we really questioned, well, are we supposed to continue now? Now we could see Adrian had spent her most of her life. She lived a full life in 13 years. She was a worship dancer. and she danced at several churches around the city. Her dance calendar was always full. She danced with a community worship team where they would go and dance outside for Church Under the Bridge. She had her own dance ministry. And so we knew that the purpose for her homeschooling had definitely been fulfilled, but we weren't quite sure about the others. And so we had so much support from the church community and from the homeschool community and our own families. So they all kind of descended on our home somewhere between her passing and her funeral. And so my husband and our then next daughter, who was 11 at the time, and I sat down and talked about, is this what we're supposed to continue to do? And at that point, we started thinking, what a terrible thing it would be to now put a child in public schooling who was used to being with her family all day, every day, and put her in a middle school. That's not a good jumping off point. And so, just through prayer, we continued and we persevered. We went through a number of trials. We had family members who were adamantly opposed to our homeschool. And they would take every tragic thing that happened in the news associated with homeschooling and say, well, this is probably going to happen to you as well. And so even to the point where I think even one of our family members said that our children would never succeed and that they would never be anything but kitchen help. Well, our children heard these things, and the determination within themselves rose up. And we have been blessed now after retiring after 25 years. We've seen that second daughter graduate from Baylor University with a bachelor's degree in history and a master's degree in museum studies, and has served as the map curator for the state of Texas General Land Office. Child number, the next graduate also wanted to go to Baylor. They all wanted to go to Baylor because since they were homeschooled, they never had like the whole school motto, school colors, that sort of thing. So they decided amongst themselves that they were all going to go to Baylor, so that when homecoming came up in the future, they could all meet there with their families, and it could be their sibling thing. So our son, who had been born in Okinawa, he graduated from Baylor magna cum laude with a bachelor's in communications and a bachelor's in film and digital media, minor in communications, now serves as a chief communications officer in the Air Force. He's a lieutenant in the United States Air Force. And the baby, the youngest, she is a senior, and she's about to do an internship at the United States Capitol in Washington. She's in the Baylor in Washington program.
Well, your homeschool story, Nichelle, is one of challenges and super, super abundant blessings. Thank you so much for sharing Adrian's story with us. I just have so much honor and so much respect for you and your husband, your family, for how you persevered and how God has blessed you. And I know where Adrian is concerned, you have all these memories of her dance, and it's just beautiful. But one thing I want to ask you, of all the challenges and the blessings that you've gone through as a homeschool mom, what do you think is the most important thing a new homeschool family or a new homeschooling parent should know? What is the most important thing? I remember you sharing that, Adrian lived a full life, at age 13, but she lived a full life being being with you and your family and as a homeschooler. So what would you share with the new homeschool mom or parent, the most important thing about homeschooling? I know there's so many important things about homeschooling, but what would you say is the most important thing?
I think for us, we heard a saying before we left Germany and moved to Okinawa that if you don't have a vision for yourself, you will take on someone else's.
Yeah.
And so I think the most important thing is to know who you are. Sit down and write it out, write the vision, make it plain, know what it is that you the goals that you have for your children, but also the goals that they have for themselves. And if sometimes life throws challenges at you, we have another saying, change the plan, but don't change the goal. Having that written vision in front of you will help you when you encounter naysayers, when you fall into financial difficulties and you don't know, if it's going to be financially feasible for you to continue. Having the vision in front of you will help you to stay the course.
I love that. Change the plan, but don't change the goal.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
the goal is to get our children to a point where they are productive citizens in this society. And it seems like that's what you and your husband has done, where your children, you've given them such a great path to walk so that they can continue to build upon the legacy that you and your husband have prepared for them.
Yes.
Yes. I know that you have created some resources.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So when I was coming close to retiring as a homeschool mom, I had to sit down and figure out how to reinvent myself. And so I thought about what would I miss most about homeschooling, and it was teaching history. I love teaching our children about history. We didn't always use a textbook. Our library overdue fines were massive because we got booked up.
I know.
So we last summer, when everything shut down and moved online, actually the spring break before, I had been teaching at a very small co-op, and I moved my classes online. But last summer, I was talking with my daughters about offering more widely homeschool history classes. And my daughters were like, well, count us in. And so we developed Warp and Weft History, which is an online virtual learning program for homeschool teens. We only offer classes to teens. I offer history classes in U.S. history, world history, African American history. My older daughter offers classes in Texas state history, as she is the map curator, and as well, she also offers coaching for the National History Day competition. She herself is an alum of the National History Day competition, and so is my younger daughter. My younger daughter is actually won with her team second place in the nation. And so we feel that National History Day program is a very good resource for teaching young people how to research things accurately. We are living in a time where people just take a soundbite of things and they don't really know how to research fully. And so we really feel like this is a skill that can transcend not just history, even though it's focused on history. It will be helpful in any other area of life. And so our youngest daughter, she taught U.S. government.
This is amazing. So this curriculum resources that you have, they're African American or Black American based?
The African American history class, of course, is. The other classes, I have not yet written my own curriculum. I'm using others' curriculum, but because I am very interactive in my teaching, I bring in those resources. Even with world history, I may not necessarily be talking about Africa, but we definitely explore some topics like in this society, there is a dominant culture and a non-dominant culture. And we can trace some of those common themes to African American life in America. So
I would, excuse me, I would love, I'm so impressed by your vision and what you're doing. It would be interesting from a Black woman's perspective, being that you didn't, I mean, I know your African American curriculum is about African American, but your world history and your United States history, from an African American woman's perspective, I'm just going to use Black America, African America interchangeably in this conversation, but to hear how, from your perspective, how you see world history and how you see United States history. So, I mean, how can parents get, how can people get what? I know the national, the last question I'm going to ask you is about the National Black Home Educators, but how can people access your information?
So our website is www.warp, W-A-R-P, think of weaving, a loom, and weft, W-E-F-T, history.com. And the reason why we have named it that, yeah, the reason why we named it that is because our ancestors were enslaved by the Cherokee people, but we are also descended from Cherokee. And so one of our ancestors was a woman named NBHE, and she's called a beloved woman of the Cherokees. When they captured a white settler, in exchange for releasing her, she convinced her to teach Cherokee women farming and agricultural skills, with the goal being that if the United States government could see a mirror image, could see that the Cherokee people also farmed and also had animal husbandry and those types of skills, that maybe they would leave them alone.
Right. Right.
So well, you know, the goal was independence.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to get to this one last question because it is storming here in Louisiana, and yes, I live in the back of the woods, and our electricity could go like that. But one last question: how has why did you come to NBHE? How has NBHE impacted you as a family and your homeschool journey and your just you and generally in general?
So I have known of NBHE, right. I have known of their existence for many, many, many years, but never joined, because while we were homeschooling, we had a lot of financial challenges, and so we had to be very selective about what we applied. But I have seen it be a blessing in the lives of many of my friends who had membership. It took us a very long time. We had been here at least 5 years before we even met another Black homeschool family. And so African Americans in particular have unique challenges as homeschooling. There are things that we have to endure. Many of my children would go to activities and they were always the only or the first. And so being able to join in community collectively with other Black homeschoolers is such a burden reliever, to be able to share, I had this conversation in this space and I was not heard. And to be able to talk to another and say, I'm not crazy. That actually did, mean what I thought it meant. And so just the blessing of community, that's what National Black Home Educators means to me.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I just want to wrap this up and thank you all for listening, and thank you, Nichelle, for coming on the Path Parents as Educators show. We definitely want to have you back again. Angela, I don't know if you're on, but Nichelle's work will be featured. The National Black Home Educators is bringing out to the forefront again its Legacy magazine. The Legacy magazine's last issue was 2012. And we are resurfacing that magazine again in the most beautiful way. Our fall, our autumn magazine is going to be absolutely beautiful. And I encourage you all to go to the website www.nbhe.net, and you will see where you can actually sign on, click on to receive, to find out information about how you can get that magazine, because Nichelle Nelson's work will be featured in that magazine. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. We're definitely want to have you back. I wish you all the success with your work, and we'll be praying with you and standing by your side here to support you. God bless you. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.